changing workplaces, healthcare, and interactions of cities, countries, and even the world at large, it seems the sky is the limit on how AI can transform our lives. But with benefits comes hurdles such as the potential for misuse and roadblocks like international disputes or the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. So what is the current state of AI and what are the new frontiers? To talk about all things AI, we are joined by Dr. John Hopcroft, a professor from Cornell University in New York who specializes in AI research and a recipient of the prestigious Turing Award, and Irakli Beridze, head of the Center for AI and Robotics at the UN Interregional Crime and Justice Research Institute. That is our topic. This is Dialogue. I'm Julia. There seems to be two buzzwords about new technologies. One is artificial intelligence, the other is 5G. The proliferation of 5G, there's much anticipation about how AI can interact with the benefit from 5G. So, Dr. Hopcroft, what is your take on the interaction between fast communication and artificial intelligence?
Yes, one of the things that makes AI work is access to large amounts of data. For example, in Beijing, you might want to know the position of every automobile on a road to improve traffic flow. And what makes 5G so important is it gives the bandwidth to let AI get access to these enormous amounts of data, which really makes AI very useful.
So 5G can provide fast communication of vast amount of data. How essential is that for artificial intelligence to work better?
Oh, it's really what is going to drive artificial intelligence. And also 5G gives better location. With the higher bandwidth, it's a higher frequency, and so the cells have to be much smaller. So there's a tremendous advantage that 5G is going to provide AI.
And Mr. Beridze, what is your take where we are in terms of AI development and how it will be used?
Well, on the 5G side, I mean, it's a really good question. 5G, as John just underlined, will increase the size and speed of data transmission, allowing ultra-low latency, more reliability, massive network capacity, and it will have increased availability. So ability to process data in real time of 5G network will open up many new AI-powered possibilities. The data with other cars to help them avoid the hazards, or it can incorporate data from other cars to optimize a route to ensure on time arrival, considering traffic and weather ahead across multiple routes. But at the same time, there is always, however, an associated threats which are also associated with it. And since, for example, crime follows money and the world's economy values forecast to gravitate towards 5G, it is likely that after the adoption of 5G, criminals will abuse this technology for financial gains as well, and we should always take into account these two sides of AI and technology.
So are you saying it is going to be increasingly difficult task, another dimension of cat and mouse for criminals and investigators?
Well, it's like every technology. When the technology is adopted, it soon enough is also used by the other side, by the let's put it this way, by bad guys, by the criminals. Criminals use internet. Criminals use different and increasingly using all sorts of AI tools right now as well. We already have some good examples of it, and in the future they will also use any upcoming technology.
And Dr. Hopcroft, according to the International Data Organization, they predict that by 2025, 75 of the organizations will be investing in employee training in order to fill their skill gaps because of AI. In what ways do you think businesses, manufacturing or services, will be different using AI?
Well, many of the jobs now that are carried out by low-level employees are simply going to be automated and are going to disappear. And this is going to require
You mean across the board?
Yes. There's even the question as to what percentage of the population is going to be needed to produce all the goods and services that we want. And these are issues that we're going to have to be concerned with in the future.
Are you suggesting that many of the jobs that are now done by humans will be replaced by AI, and a lot of people will get out of jobs?
Yes, that's certainly going to happen. Although economists will sort of claim that back in the Industrial Revolution, although it eliminated jobs in agriculture, it created new jobs in manufacturing.
Yep.
And they claim that although we will eliminate many of the jobs in manufacturing, that new types of jobs in information processing will be created. But simply because once it happened okay, it's not clear that it's going to happen okay this time. And we may have to be concerned how we're going to find meaningful activity for members of the population.
Then if they cannot be employed in those information services, as you said, there's going to be a social disruption and even political problems for the whole world.
Right. I mean, if we don't handle this problem, if a large number of people are unemployed, it could lead to instability. And there are a number of ways that one can handle this. One of them is by reducing the size of the workforce. In the United States, typically you retire at age 65, but we could reduce the retirement age to age 60. That would be a significant reduction in the size of the workforce. Also, if it takes more education before you enter the workforce, that's another way of reducing the size. Also, you could require a longer vacation each year. So there are many things you can do to handle this. And the real question is what percentage of the population is going to be needed to produce all the goods and services.
Are you sure this is for sure going to happen? Because also in the meantime, a lot of countries, especially developing countries, are worrying about maybe we will extend the retirement age because there are not enough people to do their jobs.
Right. It's never clear exactly what's going to happen. But I think many people believe that it's going to require fewer people. But that's quite often when you're predicting the future, you're simply wrong. And so one's got to be prepared for all methods.
And what about you, Mr. Barise? What is your estimate of the employment caused by disruption by AI?
Well, last few years, there have been many studies done by many reputable organizations, and the estimations are really varied. You have from 10% to the 70% of the destruction or complete sort of elimination of some categories of the jobs. To me, the main question is whether if this will happen, when this will happen, and how the speed of the development in AI will match into the policy development of the countries and the readiness of the countries to answer the questions. And that would sort of determine the whole big disruption portion of the situation. For instance, if automation will accelerate and we will automate jobs now within a couple of years, our social systems, our readiness to answer to this situation will not be there, and it won't be a very difficult situation. At the same time, if the automation will take some longer time and we'll prepare properly, we might have a smoother transition. And how long it will take, of course, predicting the future is very, very difficult.
Dr. Hopcroft, what industries, what sectors might see the most dramatic change? I mean, what are the jobs that AI can do perfectly and replace human beings, and what other jobs that probably will still be taken by humans?
Yeah, it's primarily the low-level jobs are the ones that are going to disappear. And the jobs that are going to be created are to design the AI programs, and they're going to require a much higher level of education.
And we don't need many of them.
Pardon?
We don't need many of them, the designers of the AI programs.
It's not clear. I suspect that one of the major areas that those nations that really advance are those that are going to create high-level education in the AI, computer science areas. Because many issues come up. Questions of security of systems, and there's just many aspects. And also, whole new industries that we don't even conceive of are going to appear. When the
can we conceive any at the moment?
Well, look at things like TikTok or various communication strategies. When I was a child, the way we got information was by newspapers or radio.
Yeah.
Today, it's by social networks. And so whole new industries are being created.
And Mr. Barize, what is your take? How widespread the impact will be, and what areas might see game-changing effects that will reshape the total industry?
I think that most of the areas actually will be impacted by artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence, what it does is that it analyzes a large amount of data. And we are increasing collecting of the data. When 2010, we had only 1 zettabyte of data. Right now in 2020, we have 40, and in 2025, we're going to have 175 zettabyte of data, which is an unbelievable amount, and no human being or no combination of human beings will be available to analyze such an amount. Therefore, we would be needing AI systems to do that for us, and most of the industries will be impacted. Although AI will not be a purely destructive force, but it will also indeed create new jobs and redefine existing roles. In fact, in developing countries, only less than 5% of the current occupations could be completely automated if the existing cutting-edge technology was widely adopted. And this is latest report by the McKinsey. However, 60% of the jobs, 1/3 of the tasks, could be automated as well.
And Dr. Hopcroft, computers probably make decisions on data and logics, but humans have other things, intuition, emotion. And do you think AI can get that kind of capabilities, or should they?
It's going to be a long time before those things are really understood. And it's not a question of whether they should. You know, eventually they're going to happen. Some bright person is going to figure out how to do something. But we're a long ways from it. AI, it's in my view, it's a little hard to even call it intelligence at this stage.
And Mr. Barize, what do you make of the differences between artificial intelligence and human intelligence? And will artificial intelligence be so powerful that it will overwhelm our world?
Well, look, I mean, artificial intelligence actually in some domains right now is already powerful and already overwhelming our world. Artificial intelligence is doing incredible job in some specific domains. What artificial intelligence cannot do is to have a human level intelligence, which I fully agree with many experts who believe that this is a long way to go, and we may never even achieve such a level. And speculating something what will happen in 50 or 100 years down the road is very difficult. But what will definitely happen is that artificial intelligence will be used in specific domains and will be used very successfully, like in healthcare, like in energy creation, or many other fields where AI will be a very dominant force, if already is not.
Because this is so powerful a tool, many people worry that it might be abused. And when it is abused, it will cause a lot of damage. For example, Mr. Barize, AI will be used to create what we call deep fakes, that is fabricated footages or sounds that appear real, but they are not actually real. Because the computation power of AI, it can happen fast, it can happen everywhere. How do you think this kind of a new phenomenon will challenge our human world?
Right, it's a very good question. Of course, deepfake is a very vivid example how AI can be misused. We are preparing a report together with Europol and other organizations, which will be released in coming months, and which will describe in details how this could be misused. For example, it will manipulate public opinion. It has the ability to do it. It can destroy the image and credibility of an individual, harass or humiliate individuals online, or perpetrate blackmail, extortion, fraud, and manipulate stock markets even. Deepfakes can be employed exploiting apps, open source tools available on the various platforms, and distributed on the forums and underground markets as well. This means that while technical knowledge and understanding of the computational parameters are required in order to develop such techniques, much of the software is already available to the public for general use. So therefore, although there are some examples of the malicious use of deep fakes, and this is very important, it is not being employed at large scale by criminals yet, and it might have been expected. So some of the potential reasons for this could include that short lifespan, only to generate an immediate shock factor. At the moment, some technical skills are still required, and for now, there are more effective traditional attacks. But at the same time, what is really important is to create countermeasures that can be taken to control.
But do you think the government has the power to regulate this technology? As we understand, this is very powerful, very hard to keep monitoring.
Certainly. I mean, any misuse of technology is regulated and should be regulated in the future as well. Any harm to human beings should be regulated on the international scale. What we are doing is, together with Interpol, we created quite a powerful platform, AI for law enforcement, and we are trying to understand how technology could be misused for malicious use and how to countermeasure it and how governments can take actions.
And we have also collected some opinions on artificial intelligence from the internet and social media users. Let's take a look what some of them have been saying about this fast developing technology. Pulp Librarian said, well, smartness isn't just about processing power or efficiency. It often means the ability to successfully manage ambiguity and make informed decisions on partial information. That's what humans are good at. Can AI really do that? Well, that seems to be a question about human intelligence and artificial intelligence. So, Dr. Hopcroft, what about those areas, as this social media user said, ambiguity and those things that not easily calculable, not easily put into an equation and a mathematical form?
Yes, well, one of the things, AI is quite good with partial information. And one of the things that is changing is, in the past, when we wanted to make a decision, we would develop a set of rules, and either a human could execute them or a computer could execute them. But what is happening with AI is learning from data. and there's no set of rules. And so it's no longer possible for a human to execute what the computer is doing. And this is a fundamental change. But looking at large amounts of data and looking at patterns gives AI the opportunity of pulling out special cases and things like that. I mean, you can look at banking transactions and you can see when there's something which is unusual, and AI can pull that out where it's a little harder for a human because they don't have access to as much data, to just millions of transactions.
This very prominent case of AlphaGo playing against a human player in the game of Go. And some moves are considered to be very creative by a machine. Do you think artificial intelligence can be creative in the traditional sense, that is, produce something that humans haven't thought about?
Well, it's not so much about what humans have thought about. It's the computer simply has the power, the computing power, to do an enormous amount of work. And if I go back to this chess and this tree of exploring various levels, what the computer can do is it can look at certain branches and say, this is not a reasonable one to explore. And that cuts down the amount of work that it has to do. So you're going to discover that AI is going to do many jobs better.
Much better.
Than humans.
Yeah. Let's talk about one example that AI has done very good, probably better than humans. That is pandemic control. On December the 30th, an AI system in Canada, Blue Dot, it spotted coronavirus cases in China 9 days before the WHO released a statement on the disease. Besides the early detection, it actually had no access to the disease itself, but it read some information on the internet and decipher a pattern, as you said. So will AI be very useful in that area?
Yes. One of the things it can do is it can determine where a hotspot is going to occur. It looks at various factors, and in the past, a similar set of factors led to a hotspot. And so it can predict hotspots better than humans can. There are just many problems like this, but they really fall into pattern recognition. The AI system is very good at looking at patterns and saying, is this similar to a given set of patterns? And that's what it uses to predict.
And Mr. Barise, another area where pattern recognition is probably important is security. I know you advised governments on dealing with international security and with a focus on AI. How will the technology benefit governments in security work?
Well, look, for example, at the United Nations, we have United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is the so-called Agenda 2030, to solve very ambitious 17 goals, 169 targets with 230 indicators. These are the extremely powerful, ambitious goals which governments set out. For example, things like no poverty, good health and well-being, quality education. And we are exploring possibilities how artificial intelligence can contribute towards solution of these goals. We've created something called AI for Good summits under our sister organization, ITU, where many projects have been examined, how this can contribute towards implementation of these goals. And for example, we have systems where mapping to tackle no poverty, AI can map poverty from the space, enabling real-time resource allocation. Or on the quality education, it can analyze patterns of student learning and prescribe individual learning plans. Or things like on the climate action, it can predict climate-related disasters. And many other things like gender equality can drive balanced hiring practices and spotlight gender inequality if it is applied properly.
Are you saying that the UN is already doing those kind of forecasting basing on AI?
Certainly, UN is examining various AI tools to see how it can contribute in the fulfillment of the Sustainable Development Goals, which I just described, which are very ambitious goals by 2030, how to transform our world.
But what are the disadvantages with this new technology? Should we be guarding against some of the harms or pitfalls of AI?
Well, there's a large number of them. For example, if AI is just a black box and doesn't tell you how it came to a decision, that can create problems. For example, if I use an AI system to grade exams in a course I teach, some student might come back and say, why did I get such a low grade? And if we can't answer them, that's going to be a problem.
Okay.
So we're going to have to make AI systems that can explain how it arrived at a given decision. Another issue that comes up is bias. If we train an AI system on data which is biased, that bias is likely to get into the algorithm. And so, for example, if most high-level jobs are held by men, and you ask an AI system to find somebody to fill a high-level job, it will probably pick a man. So we have to learn how to get rid of bias. Also, AI is going to create a tremendous amount of wealth for countries. And if that wealth doesn't get distributed in a reasonable way, there's going to be problems. Because I think globalization is going to be very important. And in the past 40 years, created a lot of wealth for countries. But the reason I think that many countries are concerned about globalization is that wealth wasn't distributed very well.
Yeah.
It went to the most wealthy people.
All right.
So there's just a couple of issues like this. Another issue we're going to have to be concerned with is, what if an AI system makes a mistake? Who's responsible? If you take a self-driving car and it's in an accident, is the owner of the car responsible, or is the designer of the AI system?
Obviously,
so we're going to have
AI can bring a lot of benefits, but also challenges for us as a human society.
Oh, there's an enormous number of challenges that we're going to have.
We're running out of time. Thank you very much, Dr. Hopcroft and Mr. Barise, for your wonderful insights on AI. Thank you. You've been watching Dialogue here on CGTN. I'm Zoe in Beijing. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.